Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and I'm currently comparing a Crosstrek, a premium with a 2-liter, and a sport with the 2.5 to compare how the ride quality of these are. I decided on these two trim levels as the premium and the sport are basically the second and the third highest of the options that Subaru gives us. So I didn't want to compare a base model as that's a little bit less relevant, and I didn't want to compare Wilderness because that's on a Geolander all-terrain tire, and again it would be a little bit less relevant because it's lifted. But these have the same ride height, so I wanted to show you guys how do these compare. Primarily the engine specs, you know, how it does 0 to 60 on my GPS, doing it on the same day, same road, within an hour of each other, back to back, so you can see the real world performance differences in these two engines. But also, how do the vehicles handle? How do they ride? They're on a slightly different tire, slightly different wheel, and there's a few other minimally changed or interchangeable characteristics between the different trim levels that Subaru offers. Obviously, these are on the Subaru global platform, but not every Subaru is created equal. And I can tell you, on a very windy day out today, just a few moments ago, I saw two tumbleweeds. One had at least a 2-foot diameter, rolling across the road pretty darn quicker than a lot of cats I see run across the road. So there's really a lot to show you guys, there's a lot to compare, and let's start with a little acceleration in sport mode, traction off. I feel like I'm only gaining about 2 miles per hour per actual second at this speed, because this motor makes just under, or actually about 152 horsepower. So it's really short-winded, it's a little bit anemic at altitude. Currently, the density altitude's almost 4,000 feet, so we're getting fairly close to a mile above sea level. The brakes work well, and the wind noise, not horrible right here. I feel like I'm kind of protected, even though there's not really much out here to cover me. Anyways, getting back up to speed, half throttle when the vehicle's unloaded, with only me and my backpack in the car, even though it can fit full-size adults in the back seat. It feels fine. It's only when you're going full throttle that you notice that it just doesn't have the power, doesn't have the higher horsepower, the low end torque to really get it moving the way you want. And I owned a Crosstrek for over 2 years and over 40,000 miles of premium as well. So I have quite a bit of experience in the seat of one of these. I've also driven literally a dozen or more. I've driven all the trim levels for 23 and 24. If you want a legit objective review with more specs and stats, you can check out any of those videos I have. But otherwise, I just want to go back to back with this and then the sport with the 2.5 liter Boxer to share what subjective feelings do I notice. Because if you guys are going to spend 30 grand or more on one of these new vehicles, you want to know how it drives. You're going to spend most of your time inside of the vehicle, not outside looking at it, but you want to know how does it perform. And the brakes at half pedal slow you down really well. Tiny bit of nosedive, but honestly not too unpleasant. Accelerating around a corner feels flat, not a lot of body roll. The little 2-liter engine definitely makes some noise, a little bit of racket with how it revs out with the CVT. But honestly, I like the sound of a naturally aspirated engine, even when it's not the most acoustically or auditorily pleasing. I think they still sound better than a lot of little turbo engines, so can't complain too much there. But overall, this is a comfortable vehicle. Almost 9 inches of ground clearance in these Yokohama all-season tires. It feels really healthy, really good driving through the country. You know, it brakes well, it accelerates decently enough. In fact, let's get to the 0 to 60 now. 0 to 60 in the 2-liter premium. Traction's off, sport mode is on, density altitude's 3,800 feet, so this one's down on power over 12%. Let's go. CVT's holding like it should. True 0 to 60 came in at 10.84 seconds. So not great. Keep in mind, I'm the only one in the car. The vehicle's unloaded and I'm not going over a mountain pass or twice the altitude like somewhere else in the country could be. So it's a little bit anemic, but in daily driving it feels just fine. Okay, as you saw, that was not super impressive. I know that's a few seconds slower than you guys might think this should run off of the magazine, but this is real world testing. I'm not doing a dozen launches on a sticky drag strip at sea level in cold weather to show you guys that I can do 2 seconds better or more, and taking rollout out of the equation, which is kind of cheating, even though that's what everyone does. That's the true time. It was almost 11 seconds. And although that's not super fast, at least can move out of its own way at low speeds. But the reason that I care so much about performance and acceleration is because I do physical therapy as my day job. I work with patients who have been hit by cars and are in accidents. And if it takes an extra 100 or 300 feet to get 0 to 60, that means you have to judge when you can pull out onto a highway by giving the vehicles you're going to be around an extra couple hundred feet so that you don't get in their way and upset them, because we know road rage is all too real these days, which is unfortunate, especially with how fast vehicles are and fast EVs are. But overall, this 2-liter premium is a comfortable vehicle. I really don't have any complaints. The wind noise isn't dampened extremely well, but also it is really windy out today, so that's not necessarily that fair, and I don't have a true decibel reader to provide that with you guys. But overall, the Crosstrek is a phenomenal vehicle. And if you want one, if you want this one specifically, it's about $1,000 under MSRP from Twin Falls Subaru, so I'll link it below if you're interested. They do under MSRP on everything new, which I really appreciate. Anyways, guys, let's hop into 2.5-liter Sport and continue on with this video. All right, guys, and now I'm in the 2.5-liter Sport, which honestly, it's pretty interesting. The price is actually about the same. It's still nearly $1,000 off MSRP. So this one you could buy right now for within a couple $100 of the premium. But the premium did have a few upgraded options, and this Sport is a little bit closer to basic. But some of the interesting observations, just being back to back without making this a legit review, is you get the leather wrapped wheel on this one and the wireless charger. There are trade-offs between the 2nd and 3rd generation Crosstrek. There is a miniature tumbleweed, just a little guy, but don't worry, he'll probably grow with time and more wind. So anyways, like I was saying, there is a trade-off between the 2nd and 3rd gen. The premium, like I had in my 2nd gen, my 2019, it had a leather wrapped wheel. That disappeared, but these new generations have more safety features, like the really bright LED headlights, which are fantastic at night. And then this Sport, although the seats are really comfortable, just like the premiums were, being cloth, and you have the nice yellowish accents, you lose the StarTech seats that the 2nd gen had. So Subaru kept the price fairly similar to the 2nd gen Crosstrek, but there are trade-offs. Also, no more physical knobs. You just have the big display, which has some of the tiniest little buttons down there that it's easy to miss point when you're trying to get to the right button. But anyways, back to the side-by-side comparison. This also doesn't have the sunroof, and I think that's why this feels more insulated. It feels a little bit more solid, and there's less wind noise than the premium had. Also, let's do that 60 roll I did before. That feels like that climbs more like maybe 3 to 4 miles per hour per second, and then getting on the brakes, maybe a half pedal. Really nice. The brakes feel about the same on these Falcon tires that the premium did on the Yokohamas. I can't really tell a difference on the road because we're not pushing each tire to the limit. Also though, like I said, if you guys want to watch actual reviews of these, check out those videos that I have. I also have Falcons and Geolanders in snow if you want to see how these do, in my opinion, doing the same track in some unplowed snow. But anyways, back to the focus of this, because I keep getting off topic. Honestly, guys, these non-objective or more subjective experience reviews, like point of view driving reviews, I've done a few more of recently. They're just fun. It's fun to connect and share with you guys, and also comment below any thoughts and opinions off of what I'm saying, things you disagree with or agree with, either way. And honestly, obviously, you should always test drive vehicles for your own and test drive different manufacturers, different brands. But overall, it really does feel quieter in here. It feels like it handles about the same. Again, not pushing the limit of these tires. The steering is great. The safety features on Subaru and the capability of these are basically why you buy one. The all-wheel drive on this is better than anything else I've driven. The H-Track with Hyundai, Toyota's RAV4, the CR-V, Mazda CX-5 and 30. Those are actually pretty close, and I think the H-Track system is not that far off, but I still think that Subaru's all-wheel drive is the best. But it's a really nice vehicle. And with the 2.5 liter, let me show you what it does 0 to 60. All right, just like before, traction's off, sport mode is on, brake rev, let's go. Oh yeah, that hits harder once it hits about 3,500 or 4,000 RPM. Oh yeah, decently quicker. 8.89 seconds, so from what I remember about the 2 liter, that's about 2 seconds faster. Same road, same density altitude, within an hour apart. As you can see, 2 seconds faster, and you can feel every 100th of a second of that, because this feels much punchier. You can partial throttle at every RPM. The CVT in these more modern Crosstreks, it feels more refined. It feels a little bit more direct every single time I drive one, basically, as they come out. It just, I don't know if there's literature on what Subaru's doing with them, but they just feel better every time. And this 2.5 liter really feels quite a bit better than the 2 liter does. The noise it makes isn't as obtrusive into the cabin as the 2 liter, maybe because it's not working as hard under the same load, or just however the acoustics of everything line up. This one though, I'm pretty impressed with. And on these Falcon tires, it really feels like a good vehicle right out of the box. But what are your thoughts and opinions? Comment those below. Have you owned either trim level or either powertrain, and are you considering one of the newer ones? Because it's such a small engine, even on my Turbo Outback Wilderness, I never use the paddle shifters because it just feels like it's straining the engine. It doesn't feel like it's good for it. Even being down to first gear equivalent right there, it just really doesn't slow me down like a big V8 car would if that, you know, was downshifted. There's just not the rotation, the mass in the engine to really slow down the vehicle. So personally, I wouldn't use those, at least not below maybe third gear. And then once you do use them, it takes a little bit before it finally went back into drive, if you guys noticed that. But overall, that's a good vehicle. I can't complain. For 30 grand, it's 18 grand less than the average new car, and this is only about 2,000 or 3,000 more than the average used car. And it's a Subaru Crosstrek. It's much better, far superior than the average new car, especially when you get so much stuff as standard. This Sport really is pretty basic. It doesn't have many options, and I like it a lot. But what matters is your thoughts and opinions. And I hope you like this video. If you do, give it a big thumbs up, comment your thoughts and opinions below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you on the next one. But either way, take care. Because I was just all over the place in this video, I forgot to mention that if you are going to have it weighted down with people, cargo, or tow, you know, up to its capacity of up to 3,500 pounds if it's a wilderness, or whatever it was, like 1,500 pounds in the non-wilderness, you really should consider having the 2.5 liter engine, because if the base engine can barely do it in 11 seconds 0 to 60 unloaded, and density altitude's twice as bad in my area during the hot summer, that's another second at least 0 to 60, you really want to consider having something that can move out of its own way so that you're less likely to cause or have any issues on the road. If you don't have the passing power to go around a semi or farm equipment or tractors or go up a steep hill, what are you doing? I'm sorry, Subaru, but the 2 liter, even though it's a good engine, it's bulletproof. I had no problems with mine for the couple years I had it. It's just not nearly as stout as even the 2.5 liter, which is already kind of on the edge of how fast I would want something to be. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. See ya.